The forest had gone perfectly still, as though the pines themselves were holding their breath. Audrey's world narrowed to the wet heat of the bear's mouth. Its jaws clamped around her skull like a steel trap lined with fangs, pressure building until she felt the bones on her face creak. One eye bulged from its socket, tethered only by a slick thread of red optic nerve. Swinging like a grotesque pendulum through that ruined eye, she saw them, clearer than she had the right to see. Megan was folded backward over a fallen log, spine snapped, her phone still glowing in her dead hand with the last selfie they'd taken an hour ago. Tyler lay 10 feet away, chest carved open in wet ribbons, ribs flared like broken wings. Sarah had almost made it to the trail. She was on her knees, face down in the pine needles, one arm reaching toward the distant parking lot that might as well have been another planet. The bear exhaled, a furnace blast of blood and rot. Audrey felt her eyeball finally tear free and drop against her cheek, warm as a tear. She couldn't scream. Her jaw was pinned inside the cage of teeth, but a small, wet sound escaped her throat, almost a laugh. This was supposed to be the weekend away from everything, just the 5 of them. Cheap wine, a rented cabin, the kind of trip you post about later with heart emojis and the caption, "Needed this." They'd joke about bears on the drive up. Jaden had done some stupid impression, puffing out his cheeks, clawing the air, while Audrey filmed him on her phone. She still had the video somewhere. The bear shook her the way a dog shakes a rat. Her neck snapped with a soft pop, like stepping on thin ice. Darkness rushed in, but not before she heard Jaden, her Jaden, scream her name from the tree line where she'd gone to piss only 5 minutes earlier. 5 minutes. That was all it took. He came crashing back through the brush, half-zipped jeans flapping, eyes wild. The bear dropped Audrey's body with a wet thud and turned toward the noise. She landed on her side, cheek in the dirt, the empty socket staring up at the indifferent sky. From that angle, she watched Jaden skid to a halt, chest heaving, hands empty because they'd all laughed at him for wanting to bring the bear spray. He looked at her first, at what was left of her, and his face folded in on itself. Then he looked at the bear. The bear looked back. Audrey couldn't close her remaining eye. She couldn't warn him, couldn't tell him to run. All she could do was lie there in the widening pool of her own blood and watch the thing that had just eaten her face start toward the only person she'd ever loved. Jaden took one step back, then another. His heel caught on Megan's outstretched arm as he fell hard, palms scraping across Tyler's spilled intestines. The bear lowered its head and charged. In the silence that followed, the forest finally exhaled. What's up, guys and girls? Iceman here. Welcome to Chilling Tales. So this is a different method of me doing these videos, kind of going back to how I used to do them. Let me know in the comments if you like it this way, and like this video. Hit that thumbs up button. What you're about to hear is one of the most grotesque bear attacks that I've ever told, and I warn you, it's chilling, so let's get into it. Audrey and Jaden had been together since junior year of high school, the kind of couple people called gross because they held their hands in public and finished each other's sentences. Audrey was 24, small, freckled, always planning the next trip on a barista's salary. Jaden was 25, lanky, perpetually sunburned, the one who actually made the plans happen by working overtime at the bike shop. They saved for months to rent the little cedar cabin on the edge of the Cascades, a place so remote the listing bragged it had no cell service. Perfect, Audrey had said, kissing him on the nose. No distractions. They invited 3 friends to split the cost: Megan, who documented everything, Tyler, who brought the weed, and Sarah, who claimed she'd needed nature healing after a bad breakup. Friday night was exactly what they'd pictured. Cheap red wine, a crackling fire, ghost stories told with flashlights under chins. Saturday, they hiked the abandoned logging road to an alpine lake no one else seemed to know about. Jaden carried the cooler on his shoulder like it weighed nothing. Audrey took 100 photos of him, grinning against the snow-capped peaks. By late Sunday afternoon, the others wanted to head back to the city early. Megan had work Monday. Tyler was out of weed. Sarah kept checking her phone, even though there was no signal. Audrey begged for one more night. "Just us," she told Jaden after the SUV disappeared from the gravel road, like it was supposed to be from the beginning. They made love in the loft, while dust motes drifted through the slanted sunlight. Afterward, lazy and content, they decided to walk the half-mile loop trail behind the cabin one last time before packing up at dawn. Jaden grabbed 2 beers from the fridge. Audrey slipped her phone into her pocket out of habit. They left the bear spray on the kitchen counter because, as Jaden joked, "We're basically professionals now." The trail was quiet, except for their footsteps and the occasional raven. They held hands, swinging them like kids. Jaden started humming some old song their parents loved. Audrey leaned her head against his arm and thought, "This is the moment I'll tell our children about someday." They never saw the bear until it was already moving. It came from the uphill side, silent for something so huge, a coastal grizzly that had wandered far inland. It came from the uphill side, silent for something so huge, a coastal grizzly that had wandered far inland. Rare, wrong, impossible. Later, the rangers would say it was old, thin, desperate, maybe sick. At the time, it was simply sudden. Jaden had stepped off the trail to piss behind a cedar. Audrey was 10 yards ahead, turning to take a picture of him, framed by ferns, when the bear hit her from behind. The impact lifted her off her feet. She felt the jaws close around her like a vice made of heat and teeth. There was one clear second of disbelief. This isn't happening. Bears don't do this. Before the pressure became everything, her scalp tore, her left eye burst from its socket with a soft pop, dangling against her cheek on a string of nerve. The world tilted, swung, filled with wet crunching. She saw them again. Megan, Tyler, Sarah, though they were 30 miles away by now, safe in the city, alive. In the red darkness of her mind, she confused timelines, convinced for one impossible heartbeat that her dead friends were already sprawled across the trail, staring at her with the same ruined faces. Then the bear shook her and her neck broke like a green branch. Jaden heard the sound, wet, final, and came crashing back through the brush, jeans still half-zipped, shouting her name. He saw the bear standing over her body, saw what was left of her face, turned toward him, one eye missing, the other wide and glassy and still, somehow looking right at him. He froze. The bear dropped Audrey. She hit the ground like a sack of meat and turned. Its muzzle glistened crimson. It huffed once, a sound almost curious, then charged. Jaden's legs finally remembered how to work. He ran. Branches clawed his face, roots caught his ankles, but he ran until his lungs burned, and the trail disappeared beneath him. Behind him, the forest went quiet again, the way it does when something ancient finishes feeding. By the time the search teams found the cabin on Tuesday, the bear was gone. They followed the ravens to what was left of Audrey, a scattered constellation of bones, denim, and dark hair matted with leaves. Jaden was never seen again. Some say he made it to the lake and drowned himself rather than live with what he'd witnessed. Others swear hikers still hear a man screaming her name on windless nights, the sound echoing off the cliffs like it's trapped there forever. The cabin was torn down the following spring. The trail was closed. The listing disappeared from the rental site. But sometimes when the light is low and the ravens are circling, you can still see a single eyeball, perfect, untouched, impossibly blue, resting on the stump where the trail used to begin, waiting, watching the empty space where the path disappeared, as if it expects someone to come walking back out of the trees, hand in hand, laughing about how they forgot the bear spray.